So part of changing from the old way to the new way is being able to read your horse's thoughts. Like that is what helps you to connect with your horse much more deeply. So going back to the fearful rider formula, we already went from fearful to fearless. We covered change, and now we're going to be covering connection. You have to be able to connect with your horse. Here's the most meaningful way to connect with your horse is being able to understand what's going on in your horse's head. What's going on in their heart? Like, what is their intent? When you can tell what your horse is about to do by what they're thinking, what they're feeling, you're actually able to release pressure earlier. And this idea of releasing pressure is so important. So let me give you a practical example. If you're backing up your horse and say, I'm adding pressure in front of my horse, I'm going to add pressure until my horse commits to actually backing away from that pressure. So if I'm adding pressure, once my horse starts to back up or shows me that they're even thinking about backing away from that pressure, I'm going to release the pressure. And so you might be listening to me and thinking, well, how can you tell what your horse is thinking? Like, how can you do that? Well, there's a couple things that you can look at in order to understand and connect with your horse and tell what they're thinking, okay? So one is their attention. Okay? When I talk about attention, a horse that is connected with you is paying attention to you. Their focus is on you. So what can we look at? You know, is that ear hooked onto me? Is that inside eye on me? Are both eyes on me? Are they oriented towards me? Or are they kind of leaned out away from me, right? So that's what I mean by attention. So a horse, if I'm asking this horse to back up, if I'm waving my hands in order to add pressure for the horse to back up, but this horse is looking over at this horse over here or looking back in that direction, they're not paying attention to me. It's not likely they are going to respond to that pressure and drive backwards. So attention gives you an idea. Where is their attention? Okay. The next thing that you can look at is their body language. Horses communicate primarily through body language. Yes, they might whinny and squeal and make noises like that, but primarily they communicate by positioning their bodies in order to direct one another. So a horse that's thinking backwards, before they start to actually take a step backwards, if it's feeling and responding to that pressure in front of them, that horse will start to maybe lower their head. And as they lower their head, they might start to rock back onto their haunches. You might see one of their front knees begin to break over right before they're about to take a step. That gives me some indications that my horse is thinking about taking a step back. And a horse who's thinking about taking a step back, well, that's just as good as doing it. I ought to reward them for taking that step back and reward them immediately so that they understand that we are connected, that I'm really paying attention, that I care so much about what they're doing, that I'm really paying attention to the details, right? It's like if you're in love with somebody, like you pay attention to what they enjoy, what they appreciate, all the little things that they talk about. You kind of keep a mental note about it so that you know, oh, when their birthday comes, let me get them this, or, oh, I saw this and it reminded me of you. It's the same thing with our horses. When we pay attention to what they're thinking, it shows them that we actually care, that we're investing time and effort to recognize when they try, when they're even thinking about it. I often say that when we talk about rewarding a horse for their thoughts before they actually take the action, before they step back, it's almost like when you know somebody so well that you finish each other's sentences. Does that make sense? Are you beginning to see how when you connect in that way, it shows your horse that you care and it has so much more meaning to them. The next thing that you can look at when we're talking about, signs that you can tell what your horse is thinking is direction. Direction is huge because it tells us a lot about where our horse, his body is going to go. So when I think about direction, a horse that I'm asking to go backwards, right? If they're going forward, if I'm putting pressure and saying, hey, back up, go away from me, and that horse is walking forward towards me, well, that tells me they're not thinking anything about going backwards, right? Because I can tell by their direction that they're not moving towards the end goal. But if my horse is a little stiff and they're not moving, but they start to lean back, that body starts to rock backwards, that head starts to go, even though it's up and stiff, it's rocking back a little, I'm getting some direction. I'm getting closer to the end goal. That tells me that they are at least considering moving in that direction, right? If I'm asking a horse to kind of shoulder over this direction, and when I apply pressure to ask them to shoulder over, if they're going here, well, there's no way I'm releasing the pressure because they're not thinking over, they're thinking into me. But the moment I feel that resistance start to shift and they start to kind of rock over, well, then I'm going to release the pressure because they're moving in the right direction. Doesn't mean that they actually have to do the maneuver, take the step, but once you see that shift, that is going to indicate a shift in their thinking, and you want to reward that shift as soon as you possibly can to let your horse know that you are paying attention to even their thoughts, that you care for them that deeply. Now, when you try to reward a horse for their thoughts, it's going to happen that, you apply pressure, in front of a horse, and then that horse is responding to that pressure. So you see them start to kind of rock back, and it looks like they're about to take a step. So you release the pressure, and the horse doesn't even take a step. That's okay, because I'd much rather you release too early than release too late. You can always go back, modify your release, kind of take a harder look at the indicators that you're looking at, and hold on to the pressure for maybe just a touch more until they really commit to the movement, and then release the pressure with a little bit more timing the next time. The trick is, take your time. Don't look for too much too soon, and give your horse the opportunity to actually respond to what you're asking. And when you give your horse the benefit of the doubt, when you set them up to be as successful as possible, oh my goodness, it builds a much deeper connection between you and your horse, which is going to result in much deeper trust, mutual trust in the both of you.